There you go.
You're on, Ron.
Okay. Unfortunately, we are experiencing difficulties with our streaming camera. The audio is working fine, but the camera may cut out from time to time. So just so you're aware, we'll call this meeting to order. It's the committee of the whole meeting. Is there any pecuniary interest? None. We have a Public Works Department building report coming forward.
Sure, I guess.
Yes.
I hadn't realized I was presenting. I thought I was just providing information that the council's request regarding.
Well, if council has questions, they can certainly
Yeah.
ask you.
Sure.
So this report, we just circulated it, so you might want to just address your comments on the report.
Sorry, I'm misunderstanding. I might want to address either your
Your comments about the background and the analysis. So at the last committee of the whole meeting, council had asked for a report on the needs of public works with respect to development needs.
Okay. I can start off with the scope of work. Our front entrance has a step in it, so it doesn't meet the accessible needs. So we would have to either provide some form of ramp.
Steps up?
Presently, yes. It's from the asphalt onto a concrete step and then another step into the doorway. So you're probably at least a good 12 inches. I believe under the building code, it's 1 inch per foot for as far as ramps. So we would have to address it somehow. The accessible men's and women's washroom. The women's washroom is basically a toilet and a vanity underneath the stairwell. It doesn't meet accessible standards. The men's washroom is, we have a urinal and a toilet and a hand washing sink. Again, we don't have any, it's not accessible as well. The elevator service to the main floor to the second floor. My understanding under the Accessibility Act is it has to deal with, it's a requirement because our lunchroom is in the upstairs. And any individual who may have an injury or disability cannot be segregated from the rest of the community of employees. So we had an estimate completed, and that was part of I think an interdepartmental process, because I believe the administration was looking under, had some issues here as well, and the fire department as well. So at that time, there was just in general discussion. I think the report pretty much came out. I was looking at 3 elevators, and I was suggesting in the analysis part was perhaps that we could try to create room at Public Works to eliminate an elevator and eliminate that burden of cost associated with it. That way, if the manager and the administration moved in with the potentially at that time being investigated a renovation or a new fire hall, it would create space on the main floor to allow an expansion of the washrooms without going into the actual bays where we were storing equipment. So we can create accessible washrooms and a lunchroom on the main floor, thus eliminating a need for an elevator.
Does that just mean gutting what you have, or does that mean redoing it, like tearing it out and doing it over?
We would have to, like where my office currently is, and then on the other side of the wall is Mr. Parker, and we have a maintenance leader, and we have some filing and that. We would see that area being gutted to create more room for a lunchroom and the accessible washrooms.
Okay.
And then where the administrative assistant currently is, we would see Mr. Parker and our maintenance leader moving that area more.
So you're thinking that you can get the washrooms and the lunchroom and everything all on one level?
Correct. And then we would eliminate the need of purchasing an elevator.
Right. Anybody else have?
No, that makes sense there to relocate people. But I guess what I'm wondering, we still haven't got any information about the fire hall from our consultant people. And if we can only get to find out what we can do there, we don't know if that fire hall building, if we build adjacent to it or add to it or put a new self-standing building, if that one doesn't meet Paul's disaster, and we don't know what the criteria. I don't know. Do we need an architect or do we need a structural engineer to tell us the regulations?
We have an engineer, structure engineer coming.
Well, that's what I mean, but under that assessment of all our buildings. Well, that's what I mean. If we could get just a couple of quick answers out of them, we can start looking at which way we want to go with the firewall. I mean, if we're adding on to it by, like Bill had suggested, I think when we're down there looking at space, but there's lots of room to put 2 bays. Maybe we could put 3 bays. I mean, once, all you do is that outside wall, instead of being after the second, it's at the third, and the roof is bigger, a little more back and front wall. And I'm not saying it'd be bays, but it would give us space for offices and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Storage for our equipment. It gives room for training for the firemen when they come in, so they don't have to take their equipment in and out. But we need to know what we can do there. That's
Yeah,
where we stand.
Joel, that building for where you're planning on putting the offices and everything like that, is it up to code, the structure itself?
I would suggest that it is. It's still part of the old
But
garage.
you need to be waiting for that engineer's report too.
Well, I mean, just in my experience in construction, it's like a Butler style building. I don't anticipate a structural issue. However, I mean, we would have to consult the building department, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't anticipate a structural component.
Okay, I was just curious because, if you get somebody down there to do that and all of a sudden they say, well, that wall's no good, we gotta tear it out or whatever,
I think Rob.
Counselor Bob?
I think we're speculating a lot of stuff here that we really are wasting our time on until we know something.
That's right.
And really, and let's not worry about what we don't have. We know it's underway. We asked for the fire hall report first. We can't speculate. So why don't we just resolve what we really are, or at least discuss only the one item, which is the Public Works Department. Joel, just to confirm that exactly I heard right, Mr. Parker's office would remain in the garage area.
Yes.
Okay, so there'll be a supervisory presence in the garage area. Okay, I can't remember from the original plans if we were moving everybody over to.
No, sir.
Okay, that's perfect. Do you have to speculate how much space it would take for the woman's change room and if you'd be able to find it? Because he said it wasn't in the original plan and obviously it should be.
Yes.
Should have been.
Because I think we have to have a component of the men currently have a dry as well.
Yep.
So I can't foresee that having one without the other. Space, I mean, the men's dry right now for about 18 men is probably maybe 200 square feet. It's a small room, really.
Yep.
Maybe 10 by 12, maybe 10 by 14.
Yeah, there's not much to it. I'm familiar
Not
with
much
it.
to it. So I mean, as far as a spatial requirement for a women's dry, I mean, I would imagine it would be a similar size. However, I'm not that familiar with the building code and the requirements for sizing in those areas, because due to the type of building that we have.
Yeah, okay. So what we're really coming down to is, does it make sense, no matter what we do over at the fire hall, build, expand, doesn't matter, new building or partially new? In the end, I guess the question comes down to, do we need to consider, and at the price of elevators, I'm quite happy to support that, do we need to consider putting these 2 offices, the managers and the administrative assistants, over at the whatever we build at the fire hall? And that, to me, makes complete sense. Avoid the whole elevator issue.
I have another question relating to the elevator. That upstairs lunchroom there now, when it becomes vacated,
Yes.
would that be by law, okay? Could we utilize that for storage purposes?
Yes, we still have an archive system up there
Okay?
for a lot of our documents. Yes, that use could still be used, if that's my understanding. It's, and it doesn't require an elevator at that point because it's just for a storage component. It's when you have a congregation of employees and someone has a disability or an injury and then you're segregating. That's my interpretation of the regulation.
Okay, so the same thing would apply with the fire hall then too. If the upstairs area was vacated and we used it for storage of equipment or files or whatever it is, if we were to retain the existing fire hall.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Did you have a question, Ray?
Well, I'm not aware of any laws that require we put in an elevator. I mean, I looked at it, I don't see where it says that. It requires 6 floors, and it's only for certain circumstances. This here, it sounds like we gotta put one in for any circumstance. I don't understand that. I'd like to see like a document on that, just so I could look at it. This here is just where we're just snowballing right now, and I understand that, but talking about elevators at $320,000 or whatever the cost might be is quite a bit of money. And I mean, when we put out flyers to get somebody hired and so on and so forth, I've seen it. I've been here for 3 years, and I've been in town a lot longer. We don't hire people that can't do it. We hire people that can, you know, and we try not to make any barriers out of that. I mean, it's just common sense. You're going to hire somebody that can do the job. I mean, I'm not sure where we're going with this. It just seems like there's a lot of if and buts here, and it's going to sound like it's going to cost a whole lot of money to do what we may not even have to do. Like, we should have a consensus on the building code and what it requires. I know right now, because of where it is and how it's situated, you don't have to have it. It's got the grandfather clause worked in right now. If we do anything, then we have to start looking at these things into a new light. Now, when we start looking at it in a new light, we may just as well be well, you can say any way you want, giving money away, burning money, whatever way you want to say it.
But Joel's talking about putting everything on one level, so we're not talking elevator in that instant.
That's true, but what's that going to do to the rest of the area then that's being taken up? That might not be a bad idea, actually, but I'm just wondering, once we do that, are we opening up a can of worms? There's certain things we have to look at that, you know, doesn't put us too far.
You're gonna have to revamp the building anyway, where that area is to accommodate everything, like the lunchroom and the office space and the secretary space and
Yes.
so on. So, but that still doesn't constitute an elevator.
That's true, but once you renovate, if you go past a certain number, then you have to do it all. You have to do it to make sure that everything is now in line with the building code.
And I think also by 2025 or something like that, we're going to be compelled to be accessible. If we put somebody upstairs, you're going to be compelled to put somebody upstairs. And as Joel just suggested, when you have an employee that gets hurt and he's in a wheelchair
Right.
for a while,
Right.
he ain't climbing the stairs, man.
You're right, he's not. You're right. And the other thing I'm trying to get at here, in 25, I did check some of the building code on that. And again, it's, a lot of us are misunderstanding the code. And I'm probably no better than that, but I'd like to get I'd like to understand it better. In which case, get somebody here that we can identify with, building code, one of the writers, I don't care what, but somebody that we can identify with, because I think we're misconcepting a lot of this. And if we could get like a reality check on it, I think we'd be much further ahead.
Could we find somebody that we can
Well,
get better
aren't
information.
those people that we're getting
We
in,
have the information already.
Engineers.
Your worship?
Hang on.
I mean, there's the accessibility standards, the AODA. I mean, if council wants a presentation from a specialist in that area, we can definitely find somebody.
Okay, Councillor Ron.
I'm hoping that those people that we're hiring to check our buildings, there's people qualified in there that would sit down, and I like to sit down like Councillor Dufour was saying, so we can ask them those questions, because I know what he's saying is, once you get over a certain amount of renovations, you fall under this post-disaster. But you are allowed to do some renovations. But where is that line? That's like adding on to the fire hall. If you attach and it's not a bearing wall, is it post-disaster or not? Is the public works a post-disaster site? Is all municipal or a fire hall is, but maybe the public works doesn't have to be a post-disaster site, so it doesn't fall under the criteria. We're not putting supporting walls, we're gonna put divider walls. And I would hope that that doesn't make us change the criteria. But we need one of those professionals
Well, when we
to
have
interpret the law and building code.
When we have these engineers come back in, I forget when, this spring, March or something, we can
Well-
sit them down and talk to them maybe.
Wouldn't
So
it
I'm
be,
hoping for the next meeting that we'll
Yeah.
might have
Oh, next
something.
meeting, good.
or even
Like
bring
for
one of
the
them
end of
here?
February,
No,
right?
could we
Or the
bring-
next time we have a fire hall meeting. They have gathered preliminary information for the whole project and hope to have a site visit February 5th. So I'll
Cool.
do that.
Okay, good.
Could
Very
we
good.
ask one of those people to meet with us that's qualified to give us those answers at
Definitely.
the next meeting or prior to it, or,
I'm
and
sure,
to answer
I'm
Bill's
sure that they
question
wouldn't mind.
about the ladder? When we went to see the new fire hall in Minnemoya, they put in little rooms up on the second floor on one side, no stairs, nothing. And I said, well, what are you gonna do with those? And Heather and Ray were there. He said, it's gonna be for storage, not for stuff we use every day, but for storage. And it's perfectly safe to use a ladder to go and do that. It doesn't interfere with the accessibility clause.
Councillor Bob.
Well, that's why I think there's confusion around here. We need to not fuss about the building code so much, and if you read the post-disaster clauses, I see no way that, my reading of it several times now, the Public Works building does not need to be post-disaster ready, so we're
I don't
not
think
worried
so.
about that. So don't confuse what we need to have a fire hall does need to be. But the Accessibility Act is separate from the building code.
That's right.
Forget it, it's nothing. So
That's right.
relocating, it's relatively simple to me anyway, and I'm a pretty simple person at times, I guess. If we move the lunchroom from upstairs, as Joel says, we're not allowed to segregate employees. If we move the lunchroom to the ground floor, we've automatically eliminated the need for an elevator if we only use the upstairs for storage. As Councillor Bill has pointed out, we can do the exact same thing at the fire hall. It's only for storage if we don't have a training room and such up there. I think we're fine tuning too much here, and we're missing the point that we want to worry about the Accessibility Act and not anything else. I think that's where we stand.
Yeah, the Accessibility Act drives this, eh?
Yep.
It's not the building code so much there, it's when you build something new that forces that, or you make a major renovation.
That's right.
But the accessibility code is gonna apply to old buildings in 2025. So that means that we have to be accessible.
Exactly, and let's not be making the mistake that has been made so often where we don't look ahead to the future. We know we have to do something at the fire hall. Don't know what, but we know we do. Now is the time, the only decision really to be made is, does it make sense to bring the manager and the administrative assistant over to the new construct of whatever we do at the fire hall, and then prepare, and at the same time, bring the public works facility in line with the accessibility standards. Let's face it, 7 years from now, if we wait, all we've done is move the cost forward and increase the cost in 7 years. So really it comes down to, does it make sense? I think it makes complete sense to move them over. Now that I know there'll be a supervisory presence in the building in the form of whatever Mr. Parker's job title is, which I can never remember.
Assistant.
Yeah, assistant probably is right. Whatever. And so I think that makes sense. And we can, no sense again, worrying about what's going to happen next door at the fire hall site. Does it, the question comes down to, does it make sense to do public works at the same time and move the manager and the administrative assistant's offices? And to me, it does, both cost-wise and space-wise.
Councillor Bill.
Yeah, we're trying to, part of this process is to define the space required for the fire hall. And last meeting, the plan was to move some people from Public Works. So we've asked for what was the plan for Public Works? And I tend to agree that we should probably move 2 people over. The only caveat is that in the final analysis, that we have room to have the assistant manager and is it the foreman who's over there?
Leader, secretary.
Sec-
No, the leader, the secretary.
No, secretary's moving over to.
Maintenance leader, Bill.
Maintenance leader, okay. Maintenance leader. Plus, we have the change rooms for the women, and we have the disability washroom, and we do the lunchroom. So we need to make sure we don't want to get down here and then find out, whoa, we don't have enough space here for the women's washroom.
I also see a synergy there, if we bring over the manager and the administrative assistant, that administrative assistant can have a dual purpose.
Yeah,
Help Mike with his bookwork and filing and whatever, so we eliminate the need of a part-time person.
yeah,
So there's a savings there
yeah,
to help offset office space.
yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
So what I would sort of like to know, I don't know, so we get some agreement here. If we're prepared to say we'll move the assistant manager and the manager and the
Administrative
assistant over, that's helped to define the space that required for the fire hall.
Okay,
Is it?
may I?
Yeah,
First of all, that takes away from the people that are coming in from the road, and that might be fine.
Yeah.
They just have to be rerouted to the fire station, so I guess that could fix it. Yeah, that would be okay, I guess, in a case like that. I'd like to really find out first what's going on with these buildings and this accessibility stuff there. I'm gonna check more into it. I did, and I can't recall some of the stuff, and I don't want to be
I
sure.
mean, we just heard that it's going to be soon, so
Yeah,
we'll know very shortly.
absolutely.
Councillor Ron.
Technically, if we are able to utilize the administrative assistant for both departments, much like Joel has accomplished over at the complex and Public Works, we're only looking at one more office
Yeah,
space,
yeah,
because we have fire chief's pay,
yeah,
his assistant secretary or whatever.
yeah.
If we're using our administrative assistant in both capacities, then we only need one more space.
Yeah. Well, we're just saying those 2 people are gonna be there. Now,
Yeah.
how that then all, and we've defined equipment last time, which is 3 pumper tankers and
No No boat.
and a rescue truck. So we've defined,
Yeah.
and we've now defined the offices. So staff should be able to go back and determine the area required to provide that, okay, in the fire hall.
yeah, we certainly need to get something back from this. I mean, if we're gonna do these things, preferably we get something back for it, you know? Otherwise, we're just throwing out money, so something has to come back.
Councillor Bob.
So, I'm gathering, starting to hear that there's a consensus that relocating the manager and the administrative assistant is probably, there's a consensus on that, and I would actually agree with it now for the one reason. The other thing, though, is, I'm surprised, but anyway, I don't think we should be speculating about personnel in an open meeting like we just did. Like, I think that might be, I think that might be best left.
Hang on, Ron.
I think that's something not for an open meeting, but that's neither here nor there. Is there a consensus? Like, I feel like there's a consensus here to relocate. Now we know that we'll have the new construct of whatever it might be over on the fire hall site will include space for 2 additional offices, and that we would anticipate modifying the Public Works garage facility so that the lunchroom is downstairs and we put in what's needed to meet the Accessibility Act. and no more elevators. So that's the way I read what I'm hearing.
I'm looking at one additional office. If we're gonna try to save on synergies here with personnel by combining jobs.
I guess my point was lost, that I think
Yes,
that
it
kind of
is, Bob,
spec.
because we're looking at space, and if we're not gonna look at people, we can't look at space properly.
Okay,
It wasn't lost.
do it in public.
You
Okay.
know what you're saying.
Okay.
We're not saying we're getting rid of people, but we're looking at synergies here where we
That's
might
good.
be able to relocate people and utilize them in a different capacity. And if we do, and we're looking at space, we don't need 4 offices, we may need only 3.
Yep.
Why would we build a 4th if we don't
I'm-
need? We're trying to tell staff what to look for space.
Anyone else? Ken?
Just off the subject, but same. Apparently we need a new fire truck, 2019. Is it prudent to see what we need now in terms of what kind of fire truck, and then how long does it take to get built? And what is the size of it? And I guess the question, I have never seen any documentation except what was done. Is it in January 2019? Is it the end of the year? What, to keep our liability intact? And how long does it take? That's one of the things we have to know, is the size of it, so we can.
Do you have
Just
any
another
specification
question.
sheet?
Yeah, I can give you some ballpark numbers.
Sure.
Roughly, to spec a truck takes roughly approximately 6 months.
To spec a truck?
Just to spec
Okay.
it, okay? And then to build it takes 6 months to a year. So you're looking at a year and a half from now if you started today. So that would put you well into 2019.
Does that safeguard us?
Well, that would be fine, yeah. Like if we start today. Like, so if you start in June, then you're looking almost to the end of 2019 and then into 2020 if if the process is delayed. So the process has to start, I'm gonna say before June to meet the requirements for 2019.
Well, shouldn't we be looking at that? It's it's just the same thing as an office and space. We have to know, are we gonna save 10 feet on the building because the truck
Well,
is
we
this
have the
size?
truck specs.
Yeah.
You
That's all we need, is the
Yeah,
spec.
so we have the truck specs and the length, and, when we spec it, it may vary a foot either way, but it's not gonna
Absolutely.
matter on the design of the hall though, that much,
Councilor Heather?
So the truck has been spec'd already, so we know
Sorry,
exactly what we
no,
want?
no,
Oh.
sorry. I have some rough
Okay,
spec, like just
33 foot.
just so we can get some ideas on
Okay.
when they build a truck like that, what the length is, what the
Yeah.
width is, what
Okay.
the height is, just so it makes sure that it fits into a hall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilor Bill?
Okay, so if we turn around and say, look, we agree that moving the public, 2 people out of Public Works to a fire hall is the right thing to do, and we agree on 3 pumper tankers in the long haul, okay, space for that, plus a rescue van. We probably should build in a little bit of safety with that spacing, or with those vehicles, whatever space we have, for future growth of vehicles 20 years from now, maybe another 5 feet or something like that beyond that, so we have a little bit of margin in case the vehicles become a little longer down next time we go to buy. Is that enough now to turn around and spec the total area you require for a fire hall, okay? Regardless of whether we get a combined building, how much space do you really need to do that? For washrooms, equipment rooms, as you laid out, and
So we've already done, if I may, we've
Yeah.
already done a needs assessment for the fire hall. So we have the size of all the rooms, the
yeah,
size of the bays, and all that already spec'd out. And, okay, so we know the requirements that we need going forward to meet what we're gonna need for equipment. And that includes the 3 trucks, and it already accommodates the supervisor and the secretary from Public Works.
but
So that was all included in those plans.
not the plan I saw. The plan I had a space for a boat and an area.
Those were truck bays, those are truck
Well,
bays.
but I
So
just,
I think, sorry to interrupt.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead,
I
Cynthia.
think you're getting hung up on that picture.
yeah,
Just forget the picture. If you go back to the functional requirement listing that was in that Perry report, December 27th, 2012, it's been circulated several times. Functional requirements, it lists the offices, and then the bays and what's needed. There's no mention of a boat, so let's just.
That was in
move
the
on.
So,
It was just in the picture.
if I remember correctly, in those drawings for the fire hall, there was 2 bays, they were 100 feet long each. So, which really, if you put 4 bays, 50 feet each, which would accommodate 4 trucks, is basically the same layout. Now, in there, he made it look pretty and nice with the boat and the air ladder. He was more or less teasing us, and I guess he was teasing everybody. But, okay, realistically, those 200-foot bays would fit the 3 trucks that we need in our rescue truck. That's what it would fit.
Councillor Bob.
I believe accompanying the photograph with the famous boat was actually also a summary of the square footage that was required for each function of the building, which is probably what we really need to look at. It summarized the offices, the training area. I'm sure there was a decontamination area, showers, change room. I just need to be reminded, did it include men's and women's facilities?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thanks.
and the areas there, I agreed with all the areas he had specified, okay? Other than, I thought the office, a couple of the offices were a little bit more generous than they had to be.
Councillor Ron.
I guess when Mike, you would spec rough spec, the truck in the past, I remember one of the meetings, some time back, they were a few feet longer than our biggest truck, but they weren't like 20 feet. No, just a few feet. And you know, should we decide to add bays or whatever happens after we get some more information, them bays, if they didn't have a rescue van behind it and everything else behind it, there's lots of room in them bays, you know, for the truck. It's because we have so much other equipment in 2 bays that's killing us.
Even if we had another truck the same size as the one we have now, our newest one,
Yeah.
it still would not fit.
No, not in the bays we have now.
If we
If we had other bays, that
No,
length
hang on.
would fit with no problem.
Oh, absolutely. That's a good length for the bays. Those bays, I believe, are 60 feet now that we have. So there's lots of room behind.
Oh, lots, yes.
Yeah.
But Bill, you're saying 3 pumpers. Are we now committing that we're gonna always have 3? I know we're keeping the old one, but are we committing that we're gonna start a cycle where we're gonna always have 3?
Well,
Is that what you're
I mean,
saying?
that's for us to all agree. I
No,
thought we sort of
that's why
generally
I'm
agreed
saying
on
that. I
that.
wanna know what you're meaning.
My meaning is that
We're gonna keep this one
we're gonna buy one in 2019, and the following year, we're gonna buy another one, or within a couple of years, we're gonna buy another one. I can't remember the exact
I
date.
don't remember either.
And we would keep one of.
Always the old
We
one.
would keep one of the old ones.
Okay. But we're not
And
gonna
we would
start-
have 2 that were under 20 years. And,
You only need one.
You only
okay,
need one.
well, one has to be under 25
One
years.
has to be under.
Okay, 20 years for one, 25 for the other. The third one could be 30 years old,
right.
as long as it's in good working condition. And that would be a reasonable thing to do.
I don't
Plus
just
the
wanna get under the
rescue.
idea where we're gonna
Yeah.
start cycling every 20 years, all of them.
Yeah,
Like, keeping an old one's fine.
Hang on. Councillor Bill, continue.
yeah. Now, the existing fire hall, if we took the rescue van out of that, would it hold 2 pumper tankers?
New ones?
No,
Yeah,
No.
I don't think,
because it's 60 feet.
yeah, if they're older.
Yeah.
How,
Right now, with the pumper tanker that we have and the rescue.
I say
truck-
take the rescue van out.
Yeah, okay.
Forget the rescue van, so you're not gonna put it in the fire hall, it's gonna go somewhere else. Can you put 2 pumper tankers in the existing fire hall then?
Yeah.
If we took out the tanker and the rescue,
Can you hold, okay, yeah, take both, you have 1 pumper tanker, 1 rescue van, and another pumper tanker.
Yes.
Okay, so take them all out, could you fit 2 pumper tankers in the fire hall?
Side by
In the
side, you're saying?
existing.
Well, side by side, not end for
Two
end.
new pumper tankers in
Yeah.
the existing fire hall.
Yeah, and-
Yes, you can, if you
Yeah,
took everything
okay,
else off.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Not one behind the other,
No.
side- in them two bays.
Yeah, so that means
I know what
then,
you're saying.
if, one of the options for us to look at is we, from an upstairs standpoint, the change rooms and stuff will require an elevator, but if we elect not to use that area for change rooms and personnel, but for storage, we have the option to consider, okay, whether or not it makes, financially makes much sense, to consider putting 2 vehicles in that existing fire hall. It could be a pumper tanker and a rescue van, or 2 pumper tankers.
Yeah.
Then you have the option, if you were to keep that for just for the fire hall equipment, or the 2 vehicles. Then you could build another building or an extension or whatever we want to handle 2 more, plus whatever offices, change rooms, storage areas we have. So we have 2 general possibilities we have. One is tear everything down and build everything from scratch. The second possibility is try to utilize the existing fire hall, at least for some equipment storage. You've got 2 offices there that could be converted to equipment storage for
Yeah.
scuba equipment or whatever it is, and build another building, okay, which is good for withstanding all weather events, okay, and that's where we have we'd have 2 pieces of equipment in that fire hall, and we would have offices, training areas, storage, and whatever it is in that
And
new
we'd have
building.
to, excuse me, we'd have to look at the post-hazard situation on that whole building. And to look at what the engineers are going to do about that whole building.
Which
They're
one's
the
that?
ones that are going to tell us whether or not we can utilize it or not, hang on.
Yeah,
So they're gonna be able to tell us whether we should use it or not. And we're not there, we need to listen to these guys when they come. We need that information.
Certainly.
sure,
Yeah.
sure.
All right, Council.
But I don't think the fire hall requires post-disaster. What, if you use that as emergency response center, that is what is required post-disaster.
No, actually, it does say fire halls.
Does it say fire halls? as
Very
well?
clearly fire halls, but not the
Absolutely.
public works.
But then-
Okay,
Absolutely.
okay, well, that's a different story.
Council Ron.
But I'm under the impression that if you're doing major renovations, it has to go post-disaster. If all you're doing is taking it and leaving it to store 2 pumpers, we're not renovating it, we're just using the 2 bays. Then we don't have to.
That's
But
exactly.
we need those
That's
people.
if it meets code. If the building meets code,
But it must be meeting.
Well, there's a fine line there.
there's a fine line there, but we have to be assured that it will meet code.
That's why we need those people.
Yeah, find out.
Yeah, and we have to remember how much.
That's what I-
we've done it now.
Yes. Councilor Bob.
That's what I keep saying. We're getting way too
Yes.
far ahead here. This whole thing tonight is to talk about public works. And there's no sense speculating what's gonna happen in any kind of fire hall construct. We have no idea. But we can resolve, to me, I almost think we have a consensus on what we're gonna do at public works. And how many square feet it's gonna take for 2 offices or 3 offices or 1 office is almost irrelevant. It sounds like to me the consensus is to relocate 2 offices over to the, whatever we build, or wind up building.
People, yeah.
And we will, then we will carry out the renovations to the Public Works garage, which sees us eliminate the need for the elevator and bring those lunchroom and change facilities up to some kind of standard, which is far better than what they are now, because they're pretty sad shape right now.
Yes, they are.
And that was consistent with what we were saying. We have to wait till we get that report and find out.
Yes, we need those reports.
But it all becomes part of the end package. Yes, so have we
Yeah.
agreed to that? I think we have, that we're gonna relocate 2 offices to the fire hall construct, and we will plan on, at some point, it should be sooner rather than later, we will bring the Public Works Department up to a proper standard.
Right.
Is that what we agreed to?
I agree.
Councilor Bill,
Yeah.
you agree?
Okay.
Yeah,
Could
Anybody else?
Could
Councilor
I
Ron.
suggest that it's nice to get the report, we all want to see that. But like I said earlier, if we could have those people, and Cynthia could talk to them, and see who can answer all the questions on building code and post-disaster, and what you can do to fall under or not fall under it, if we could get them to sit here with us, then we could ask questions.
That's right.
Because if we're gonna get a report, we're gonna read it, then we're gonna have different interpretations around the table again. Let's get the person right here and ask them some questions.
Well, we know we have to do that.
Yeah, but
We
let's
do
get
know.
that earlier rather than later.
Well,
Then he can keep writing his report.
we've asked for it, so can't do more than we have.
Could we also ask Mike maybe for the next fire hall meeting, after Ken brought it up? I know it's hard to get exact specs, Mike, but bring everything you can on the truck. So maybe that can come under our fire hall meeting, because that's gonna be an issue also. That's what we with you, get exact spec. I know it's hard, but as close as you can to get whatever you think you need. I know we already kind of.
Just looking for
The
length.
size isn't gonna change much. The size,
So a pumper
Yeah.
tanker and whatever size, give us some little bit. So we
Just
have-
looking for length and height and width.
yeah, and we have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they already have that.
Yeah.
No, get us to it the next meeting here, and maybe we can start the process.
Okay, anybody else?
If I may,
Yes, you may.
I'd like to make a correction in regards to some comments that have been made by the public in regards to the last meeting that was held here about me interrupting council and the mayor and speaking out of turn. I don't believe that happened. I know it did
No.
not happen. I raised my hand and I was addressed by you yourself,
Yes.
Mayor Peach. And I just want to get that out into the public because there's been lots of people talking about, I don't know about lots, but there's been some people talking
Yeah.
about it and it's been upsetting me and they're going after my integrity and I don't appreciate that whatsoever.
Good, sir.
Thank you.
So are you
Councilor Ron.
saying, your worship, that if people in the audience raise their hand, we're gonna let them get up and talk during a meeting?
Where's that coming from?
Well, if people can put their hand up and get up and talk when they're not on an agenda, are we gonna allow everybody to do that?
No?
Well, that's what you just said. Because the fire chief was not on the agenda and he had not been questioned.
He's been questioned so far today.
Yes, but he wasn't questioned that night. And he kept saying,
He was.
no.
Yes, he
He
was.
was. And why are we
Was not.
discussing this?
I
He was
was
asked to
talking
come
to
to
Bill.
the, he was asked to come to
No,
the
he was
pulpit.
not.
No.
I was talking to Bill, and he said, I'm part of this meeting. Twice. The third time, he said, what's wrong with you people? We have a plan here, and that's what we should be following. He was not on the agenda, and he had been not asked a question. I was discussing with Bill. And that's a fact, and you can ask other people here.
I will.
You certainly can. There's 4 right here, and I think some people were here that night too.
Councilor Bill.
When we had that meeting, we had the fire chief here to answer questions.
But he wasn't asked one.
That's right.
And to help provide some input.
That's right.
And that was my view of what was there.
And that's
he
a fact.
provided some input, and I was not offended in anything what was said.
But he was not asked a question. I was discussing with you when I was interrupted 3 times. When he's asked a question, he's a resource, just like Joel is. But when he's sitting in the audience, he is only a resource, he is not part of the meeting.
Again, I'm going to defend myself. I raised my hands and I was addressed by Mayor Peach.
You
Yes,
shouldn't have been.
I did.
And he talks.
Thank you, gavel, I think we're done.
Yes.
I did.
Yeah, shut her
Come
down.
on.
Shut her down.
Chair,
Enough's enough.
Okay, be it resolved that the committee of the whole meeting is hereby adjourned. All in favor? Carried.